The rain poured relentlessly, turning the quiet streets into rivers of murky water. In the dim glow of a street lamp, a lone figure stood shivering, his golden fur soaked, his paws muddy, and his deep brown eyes scanning every passerby with desperate hope. Charlie had once been the happiest dog in the world. He had a loving owner, an old man named George, who treated him like family. They lived in a cozy little house at the edge of town, where Charlie would wake up every morning to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of George humming old tunes. Life was perfect, until the accident. One cold winter morning, George had left for his usual walk but never returned. He had collapsed on the sidewalk, rushed away in an ambulance, and Charlie, confused and heartbroken, had been left behind. Days passed, then weeks, and soon, the only home Charlie knew was the streets. But Charlie refused to give up. He remembered the scent of George's jacket, the sound of his laughter, the way his hands ruffled Charlie's fur. Somewhere, somehow, George was still out there. And Charlie was going to find him. His journey would take him across bustling highways, dark alleys, and the kindness, and cruelty, of strangers. But nothing would stop him. Not until he found his way back home. Charlie's paws ached as he wandered through the unfamiliar streets. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, and exhaustion threatened to take over, but his heart burned with determination. He had to find George. Days blurred into nights as Charlie learned the unspoken rules of being a stray. Some people ignored him, some shooed him away, but a few showed kindness. An elderly woman at a bakery tossed him a piece of bread one morning. A young boy at a park shared half his sandwich. Charlie accepted these gifts with gratitude, but none of it felt like home. Then, one fateful evening, as he searched for shelter, Charlie found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. A group of rough-looking men stood huddled near an alley, their voices low and urgent. Charlie didn't understand their words, but he sensed something wasn't right. He tried to sneak past, but one of them spotted him. "Hey, look at this mutt," a tall man with a scar across his cheek sneered. "Think he'd fetch a good price?" Before Charlie could run, a pair of rough hands grabbed him by the collar. Panic surged through him. He barked, twisted, and tried to break free, but they were too strong. A dirty sack was thrown over his head, and everything went dark. Charlie didn't know how long he was in the van. He only knew he was moving, the air thick with the scent of gasoline and damp fur. Other dogs whimpered nearby, some small, some large, all trapped like him. The van finally stopped, and Charlie was dragged out, blinking against the dim light of a warehouse. Rows of cages lined the walls, filled with frightened dogs. A man in a heavy coat paced the room, counting money in his hands. Dog fighting. Illegal breeding. These were the places dogs like him never left. Charlie knew he had only one chance. He had to escape. But how? As he scanned the room for a way out, a deep growl rumbled from one of the cages. Charlie turned to see a massive Rottweiler staring at him, his golden eyes filled not with aggression, but understanding. If Charlie was going to get out of here, he wouldn't be alone. Charlie locked eyes with the Rottweiler, sensing an unspoken alliance. The massive dog had scars along his muzzle, a testament to the fights he had been forced into. But there was still fire in his eyes, he wasn't broken yet. The men were distracted, counting money and arguing. Charlie saw his chance. With a sudden lunge, he bit down on the rope that tied him and tore free. The Rottweiler let out a deep, commanding bark that sent the warehouse into chaos. The other dogs in the cages began barking, howling, scratching at their bars. The noise startled the men. "Hey! Stop that mutt," one of them shouted. Charlie sprinted toward the cages, searching for a way to free the others. He spotted a rusted chain holding the Rottweiler's door shut. Without hesitation, he leaped and bit down, tugging with all his strength. The metal groaned, then snapped. The Rottweiler burst out like a storm, knocking over a table and sending cash flying. The other dogs barked wildly, their cries echoing through the warehouse. Some of the cages had flimsy locks, and as Charlie ran, he nosed them open. Dogs of all shapes and sizes bolted out, weaving between crates and metal beams. One of the men grabbed a wooden bat and lunged at Charlie, but the Rottweiler leaped between them, growling with such force that the man stumbled back. "Forget them," another man shouted. "The cops will be here any minute with all this noise." That was all Charlie needed. He turned and sprinted toward an open loading dock door, the Rottweiler and a handful of dogs following close behind. Cold night air hit him as they dashed into the darkness. Charlie and his newfound pack ran through the alleys, only stopping when they reached the outskirts of the city. They had escaped. The Rottweiler turned to Charlie, panting. "You saved me," his eyes seemed to say. Charlie gave a small bark in response. He hadn't done it alone. But Charlie's mission wasn't over. He still had to find George. As the other dogs scattered to find their own paths, the Rottweiler stayed by Charlie's side. Together, they ventured forward. The journey ahead was long, but fate had a way of guiding lost souls home. And as Charlie trotted past a familiar park, the scent of something he knew, something comforting, hit his nose. His heart pounded. It smelled like George. Charlie's paws skidded to a halt. The scent was faint, but unmistakable, George. His heart raced as he followed the trail, his nose guiding him through familiar streets. Every turn brought back memories. The park where they played fetch, the cafe where George would sneak in treats, the quiet street that led to their home. But something was different. The scent wasn't leading him to their old house, it was going somewhere else. Charlie's legs burned with exhaustion, but he pushed forward, the Rottweiler keeping pace beside him. Finally, they reached a small white building with large windows. A retirement home. Through the glass, Charlie saw an old man sitting in a wheelchair by the window. His hair was thinner, his face more lined with age, but Charlie would recognize him anywhere. George. Charlie let out a sharp, desperate bark, his tail wagging furiously. Inside, George stirred. He turned toward the window, his tired eyes widening. For a moment, he didn't move, then his lips parted in a whisper that Charlie couldn't hear but knew deep in his soul. "Charlie." Tears filled the old man's eyes as he struggled to stand. A nurse rushed to his side, trying to steady him, but he gently pushed her hand away, his gaze locked on the golden dog outside. Charlie couldn't wait. He sprinted to the entrance, scratching at the door. The Rottweiler barked beside him, calling for someone, anyone, to let them in. A moment later, the door opened. "Charlie," George's voice was hoarse with disbelief. The golden retriever leaped forward, nuzzling into George's trembling hands. The old man sank to his knees, his frail fingers running through Charlie's fur, as if making sure he was real. I thought I lost you forever." Charlie whimpered, licking George's hands, his face anything he could reach. He had finally made it. He was home. The nurse wiped her eyes and smiled. "You know, we've been telling George he needed a companion." She knelt beside them, gently scratching Charlie behind the ears. "Looks like one found him instead." George chuckled, his voice shaking with emotion. He always finds his way back to me." The Rottweiler sat a few steps away, watching the reunion in silence. Charlie turned to him, wagging his tail, as if to say, "Come with us." The nurse seemed to understand. She glanced at the large dog, then back at George. "How do you feel about two companions?" George smiled. "I think it's about time we had some new adventures." Charlie let out a happy bark. For the first time in a long time, everything was exactly as it should be. He was home.